But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
Hello and welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable. This is episode 101.
Thanks for getting me hype.
We have done this 101 times now. That's so exciting to me. Welcome to the show. I'm going to go ahead and introduce, and this show is going to be about Whale's World Order, blockchain dystopia. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel for today. As always, we've got Distant, aka Dave from Den. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here. I'm excited now that John's opened with such enthusiasm. I'm about it. I'm here for it now.
I was doing like air drums during the music.
Never been so excited about dystopian futures.
Oh, let's go. We've got Joe Dragon here from Dragon Chain.
Hello.
We've got Satoshi Shan, entrepreneur and kick butt dude all around. We've got Eric from I wrote down the name of
Takakama.
Yeah. Blockchain cybersecurity, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
That's right.
And Greg from Rivet and Cypherpunk. How's it? And my name is John. I don't work at any of these types of companies. I host the show. That's it. Welcome to the show. We're going to take care of some business from last week real quick. First, an update. The layer ownership tokens are going to be distributed. Each host is going to receive 93 lot. Each topic contributor is going to receive 113 lot. Last week's theme was Game Show 2.0. Mini games for each reply, which is a blast for me. And which was suggested by Joe Dragon, who's going to receive 113 lot for that. As a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. Super valuable. You want these things. Get in the comments. Type some stuff. Let us know what's up. Some Den.DAO, World Blockchain Roundtable DAO stuff that we're going to talk about real quick too. We are going to stop spaces, maybe. The Twitter spaces after this that we were doing for current events. I think we've decided that it's kind of difficult to get people to change places after a show. We have 11 voters that have committed a whole bunch of lot, still has not passed. So if you have lot in this, go vote on it by the end of the show so we can keep our sanity. And there it is. The theme of the week, Whale's World Order, was nominated by Joe Dragon. And so he's going to be getting a whole bunch of lot this week.
Wait, did I do this one? I don't think I did this one. I did not do this one.
What the notes say.
Nope,
so it's fact. Nope. We're changing it retroactively. Whoever suggests this is not getting it anymore.
That's not right. It's an oversight, I'm sure, but it wasn't me. I'll look real quick. I'll see if I can find it.
So how this show works is we're going to go through the comments here that you have asked us, and our panel is going to answer the questions for you. We're going to go one by one through the panel, and then at the end, after everybody's had a chance to comment on it, we'll go through and kind of have a more roundtable open discussion about it. If we have more comments to say, if not, we'll keep going. Are we adding anything else that I need to say?
Still looking.
No, it's fine.
I think Durax is the person who proposed it, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Durax is the person, so we've corrected that.
Thank you.
He'll be receiving the lot. Congratulations to him. It's been super active lately. Super appreciate that. Happy to have him participating in the show.
Is
So
it
let's
Day
go.
Rocks or Doe Rocks, by the way?
It's the rocks.
I don't know how to ask him to find out.
Okay.
It's actually Derek's. It's Derek's.
Derek's?
Yeah.
Derek's.
I have no idea.
Great. All right. So it's the person that asked the first question. So we'll jump right into it. Already in every blockchain, there's a group of whales who decide, especially in DAOs, are we in danger of being taken over by whales if mass adoption occurs and matters of daily life and politics are decided on blockchain? Honestly, this is something that keeps me up at night, something I think about. As always, I like to start from the top. Dave, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've been talking to if you remember, I Am for IAM's been on as a host a couple of times and has the umbrella promise concept, the political DAO, and just some of the conversations there. It's super interesting to see things play out that sort of resemble what's happened in the past. It's kind of like, the people that what am I trying to say? It would be helpful if everyone were more active and got involved more, right? That would be one line of defense against that. Just sheer participation in numbers. And one of the things with DAOs and with cryptocurrency and with blockchain and stuff like that is that it's pretty niche. Like it's pretty, it isn't exclusive, on paper, it's the most inclusive way to roll, but you kind of just get the nerds, the people that get it, the people that are like, about going out of their way to learn how to do something difficult. And so right now, I think, Durox is probably right. Right now, it is kind of that way because the people that get in early into a lot of these systems are the ones who might have technical inclinations that can figure it out before there's an easy button to do it. So it's a danger, and I don't know what the solution is right now.
Joe, what do you think about this?
It's definitely a danger, and I think it's interesting because you can look outside of crypto and know that it was the same issue, but it's not transparent. Where the whales that were there in 1913 still control the show, and that's why it was done that way. And there is at least the positive side of it. There's an opportunity with the technology to do something better than that. Now where are we going to apply it? And if we can get off all the hype and all the rest of that, we could actually probably be building stuff. I actually had something published on Cointelegraph that kind of outlines what I think about it in a little more depth, but it's how do I say this? I had a conversation with Larry Sanger, who's been on the show before, who's the founder of Wikipedia, right? And so he was very worried about that particular subject with blockchain, right? And it was interesting because that challenge kind of made me think a lot more about it. And effectively, what we've done, you can look at what we've done with Den.DAO for what I think is at least one of the approaches to a solution to that problem, which is using behavior. So effectively, if you have a system or a network or a thing, and you need some type of governance, rather than just saying, okay, whoever's here first, you own the bigger pieces of it. So for the future, everybody has to just listen to you, even if you don't care anymore. Instead, you effectively map certain behaviors that are positive and certain behaviors that are negative to the goals of your org, and you track the behaviors, and people essentially get more weight in governance if they're doing the right behaviors. And so it's a very interesting, very transparent, open way to say, look, somebody can come in with zero money at all into the system and can end up having a real effect because they're doing all the things to help improve the system. So anyway, that's behaviors, I think, the answer.
Interesting. It's nice that you have an answer too. So be like, well, people should vote. I got nothing. Greg, what do you think about getting people to participate?
Okay, first, this question is easy to blow out of proportion if you look at it in a vacuum, kind of like Joe was saying, right? Like, I doubt that most people know the last name Bruce, Cavendish, Hanover, Krupp, But these are just some of the lesser known names on the list of 13 families that control the boards of the banks or the biggest financial institutions at the very top of the banking system today, right? We don't know which proportions they own and which institutions they own, but those people are at the very top. Those are today's whales, right? And we can't see them. We don't know how they move. The system that they exert power through is not transparent. So that's the first point, and Joe already made it. But the second point is with blockchain, you have something different. For the first time, we have a right of exit, right? So if you have a system that starts to be too controlled by too many people that you have no personal influence over, that you can't get a foot in the door, you can literally just walk away. You can fork the open source code that it runs off of. You can start up your own party, and there's nobody who can stop you, right? That is way different from the banking system today, where they're like literally. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the character and fitness portion of a law example. They have something like that for banking charters, where like the people who issue the banking charters can say, not you. So, and that's just one system. There are gatekeepers all over the place right now in today's world. And I think the question is, could we build another dystopia? Yeah, but don't we want to exit from the one we already have?
Yeah, as I was gonna say, like we already have a whale-based system today. I mean, there's almost no difference between what you're afraid of and what we have. And the question is what we're building better, not is what we're building perfect. Because it's not going to be perfect. I will say it's extraordinarily hard to vet participants in any voting system. I did a lot of research with voting systems in the past. Most of my research was around making them secure. So that's my line of work. But you have things like activity. When you have people who are more active in a DAO, they tend to have more power. It's an incredibly small percentage of the participants. It's like you said, it's the most technically able. It's the people who understand the issues. And because it's an incredibly small percentage of the participants, you wind up with a DAO controlled by activists. And a lot of those activists' agendas are often not in the better interest of the majority of people who run the DAO, who own the DAO. It's often in their own interest. And sometimes pathologically so, where we've seen DAOs collapse under the weight of activists who are pushing the votes around in certain ways. We saw, what was that? There was an Oracle hack maybe 6 or 8 months ago that was traced back to a series of activists who altered the pricing that was perceived by the DAO, which caused a lot of people to get liquidated. So yeah, there can be pathological things. There's also tokens counts. Then you just wind up with whales in charge, right? And whoever has the most tokens wins. They have the most votes. We hate that, but we have no good way of solving it. And then you have what Joe was saying, the moral behavior. But then who's the arbiter of the behavior, right? Who decides what's positive and who decides what's negative? Is it an AI? Is it just as pathological as the system we have today? I think ultimately the only positive thing that I see that's different from the system we have, and the only law that we can fix is if the government isn't in charge of printing new money, then there's no way for people to use voting to get money from the government. Like, not that there's no way, there's less of a way. That's
getting politics out of money as opposed to getting money out of politics.
Exactly. Getting the politics out of money is actually a solvable problem. Everything else isn't. There will always be money involved with politics. There will always be whales pushing markets around. There will always be that shit. But if you can at least do that, you've done something instead of nothing.
There's one other thing can fix. I just had to cut in one other thing.
Go.
Because we are wholly welcome to shift to a not undemocratic notion of, rather than having votes, having sortition. If we had randomly selected from a sample of a population, elected leaders or committee chairs or whatever, right? You can solve a lot of this shit because then influence has nothing to do with it.
That's right. I would love to see a DAO that's governed with a jury selection instead of like with a randomized selection. That actually makes more sense
Right. Or like even just if the pool was from the owners of the token and everybody was randomly selected to actually make a governance decision. The same way
think
like
it'd
a
be more
firing squad
efficient.
has a loaded gun on one person and everybody else has.
Let's let Sean get in here real quick, though. I'd love to at least get the last person on our panel here. Sean, what do you think about everything that's been said so far?
I agree with you, John. It's something that is like worried me for a long time, and kept me up because we all were obviously in this very early, and I think so many people in the space, and I always, it used to be like my pinned tweet was the the Gandhi quote, where first they laugh at you or ignore you and they laugh at you. And everyone kind of said that was a mantra about crypto because that's what people did. They ignored it, then they said, oh, it's silly internet money, it's not real. But that one part is then they fight you. And I kept saying, that's going to come, it's going to come. And we're talking about the governments of the world. We're talking about like the really, really evil people behind the evil stuff. And everyone's like, yeah, man, they're laughing at us, but they'll fight. And then when crypto started getting like noticed and put more in the mainstream, that's when I think the fight really started. And everyone here has dealt with that, with the SEC or with all the pushback, and just the like paid FUD. It's very obvious. But the because I always said it was, oh look, we're at $1 billion, or we're at $10 billion of market cap. Like that's so nothing. That's nothing for just like one group of evil, let alone the whole cabal. I said they could buy and sell everything that you think is important. And they're like, look at the millionaires that are being made in crypto. I was like, it's nothing, and if once they come after us, we have to be, ready. So I think we're going through the fight stage. But it is, I mean, he who has gold makes the rule. And I do worry about, especially as free market as things are, without some kind of regulation, it's very easy to become monopolized or a whale, and for the whales to control stuff. It just is. And that's kind of the dangers, the negatives, the whatever you want to call it, the risks of having what really actually is the best thing that we can come up with. But then, tinfoil hat stuff, what if that conspiracy is true? What if, Bitcoin was created by the government? What if Satoshi was the government? And then people say, whatever, who cares, man? It's working. We've taken it over. But we all know that fiat, it just doesn't work. And we know that they know that everyone knows that. You can see it's nothing but a decline. So what if the plan was, we're going to ride this Bronco all the way till it dies, and then we switch over to the new system? Satoshi's wallet is worth, let's say Bitcoin goes to $1 million. Let's say that the US dollar collapses and it's all gone. That one wallet is worth $1 trillion at that time. But forget it, dollars are gone. But that would be 18,000 tons of gold in value.
Ridiculous.
So at that, like, let's say the government's like, oh, dollar's gone, but this is what we're using. The hegemony's all brought back. They're in charge again. By that time, when Bitcoin's $1 million, most people aren't going to be owning $1 million or one Bitcoin or a quarter or anything like, the average Joe. It's going to be like the usual thing. They'll be buying, paycheck to paycheck on their 0.000 Satoshis. So yeah, it is something that I think we need to think about, and people need to start working towards protecting and fixing.
Yeah, the fun thing though that you noted there, Sean, is like unless they've already acquired it, they're out already because there's no way to move that kind of liquidity into Bitcoin without tanking the banking system.
Yep.
So it's kind kind of funny because they had to trot out John Oliver again.
They need to move liquidity. If they have that Bitcoin, they own.
They don't have it.
They own the $1 million Bitcoin. And just what if? Just one of those what ifs that like John said, it kept me up at night. It does make me think it's in the back of my head because you don't know. We don't know.
The thing that keeps me not anymore, but is if they have the curves. I mean, if the actual basis of the whole, then they would own all of it. They could empty any wallet. It's not like that, because I don't think they would just like, oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna own that wallet. I think it'd be more likely that some of their having a back door to the actual cryptographic algorithms, which is entirely possible.
So I'd love to move into a little bit into the next question while we continue this conversation, because the next question is similar, but it has a fun little twist in it. This is from Hyperion Frequency. How do you crush the Moby Dicks, the big blockchain whales of the world? But then he asks, clearly humanity doesn't hate the idea of dystopian punk. How do we trick the whales into its own demise? If there's whales out there that are holding way too big of a chunk of whatever it is, how do you trick them into their own demise? Is there a way to do that, or are we kind of just like, I hope it doesn't happen?
Yeah, it's OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
I was just thinking, like, this sounds like something that could be being done
every time.
Against people that did get in early. It could be like tinfoil hat kind of thing. It's like, oh, okay, how do we clear house against the people who got into crypto early, so we don't have to put up with them? Not the question, but what came to mind. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you were going to start with a different person this time. I want to revise what I said last time. I said I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to fix it, but I have some ideas on how to make it better. It just occurs to me that the whole basis of Den's DAO structure, the behavioral based governance thing, is really interesting in this context, because one of the problems with whales and DAOs is that if you have something that you can just purchase more of a stake in, if you can just purchase more leverage and more governance influence, that's just like a shortcut, a fast route to getting to take something that's supposed to be decentralized and basically just centralizing it again. But if you think about the way that we do even this show, even World Blockchain Roundtable's DAO, everybody who's asking questions right here gets awarded governance tokens every week. And so at the beginning of this show, we talked about how we had an open GI that all of us who basically like host almost every week, who probably have the most lot, all of us wanted this particular decision and we all voted for it. And also, like, I don't know, a bunch of other people that have been asking questions, who have votes because they've been asking questions or proposing topics, all voted. All of us unanimously wanted something, and it still hasn't tipped. It's sitting at 49.83%. So having a sweat equity behavioral based governance like we have here seems to be something that kind of works for that, where you can't necessarily buy them, you can only earn them. So I do like that as a twist. Of course, you could just buy them from other people that did earn them, which is, something else.
Also, just a weird note that it's technical difficulties that's happening because I can't log in. I'm having the same problem I had before. Hyperion Frequency, that's also really cool. That picture there's AI, you said.
Oh,
so it only exists in 3 places.
Yeah, it's like when you hire someone to stand online for you at the low-cost tickets at a Broadway play. It seems like a great equalizer that people are lining up in front of Hamilton to get their cheap tickets. And in the beginning, it really was people who loved the show and people who were fans of Broadway and people who were actors and right. And then what happens is when the show gets popular and everyone wants to go see Hamilton, they just pay someone to stand in line, and all of those cheap tickets. I mean, literally like 90% of the cheap tickets at this point are people paid to stand in line. And the line is incredibly long and it's professional line standards, and there's almost no value left in the sweat equity of Hamilton tickets anymore. So it's the same.
Well, you can call it a highly competitive market, right? You can just call it a highly competitive market.
It's a highly competitive markets completely destroy activity based or activist based or any other kind of mechanism, because That's the nature of these markets.
I don't know. I think that's an issue with identity. The fact that would be if it is.
So now you're back to
fact,
WorldCoin.
Well, no, I mean that is in fact the issue with any system like that. I mean, there is a demand for it. If there is a demand for it, then putting cheap tickets in place upsets the economy itself. So, the tickets obviously are underpriced for that purpose. And if they were instead doing something, by the way, other than line standing as the behavior to get the cheap tickets, that would be the thing you should do. It's like, line standing is the only behavior. Do they value the line standing? No, that doesn't help the show. It doesn't help anything about the experience. So that's just that's an issue with the structure they put in place.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, and I think this is probably my advice on this one. What we can do, we should be wary of the Cobra effect, right? Like anything that we might do to intervene in this system could help, or it could create perverse incentives that make it more likely that whales can dominate, right? Like, I don't know if people haven't heard about the Cobra effect before, what the deal is there was this sort of plague of cobras in sort of colonial era India, and the ruling class put out a bounty on cobra tails. And what they found actually is that there were a lot of tailless cobras running around all of a sudden, and then they started busting cobra farms where they had people like breeding them, cutting the tails off,
That's
and then
like
because they didn't want to hang on to them anymore, they turned them loose. So it actually made the problem worse.
Gun buybacks, great opportunity to do 3D printed guns or really cheap manufactured guns just to make a bunch of money. It's pretty cool. It's also Hadrian to Caligula. Everybody thought, yes, Hadrian is a despot. Now we get Caligula, yay! And it's the same thing, but oftentimes, like right now, everybody realizes how despotic our government is, and frankly, I think a lot of people would take that risk. It's like, sure, shake it up, get rid of all this crap. At least it won't be this. We'll at least have some fluidity and some change.
If it does get really huge, right, there's going to be a huge secondary market. So whales are going to have to post liquidity in order to keep things flowing, right?
Yeah.
The more popular a system gets, the less likely a whale can just.
The main point too, I think when Dave and I talk about behavior, it isn't just behavior. It is tuned behavior. It's like behavior that benefits the goal of the organization. For Den, we want better content. You have to produce better content to get a weight-in vote. If you produce it with bots, doesn't matter. You're getting better content, right? It's still related, and you have, there's a lot more to it than that. But your behaviors should be tuned to something that makes sense to the goals of whatever it is you're trying to produce. So, anyway, and we have nothing like that in the traditional world, and that's why people want to see the current whales in the current system gone, right?
Right. Well, they've set up a lot of gatekeeping mechanisms, right? Like, and they're all in the guise of like get in line early for your discounted Hamilton tickets. When in reality, what they're doing is they're setting up another gamed system that allows them to appear to be being fair. But then they just send their own people to buy the tickets, right? Like
that line in front of the theater is 100% because of marketing. 100%. The reason why they did that was not to be nice.
Right, exactly. And it sounds nice when you say it like they say it, but it always ends up creating like this weird, now there's a secondary market, and the secondary market causes the prices to jack up faster, right? Like you get a hype effect on the price of the actual seats, and by the time it's all said and done, people are paying more for the tickets than they would have if there had been no discounted rate at the beginning at all.
Absolutely.
Great. So in this show, I like to break it up because sometimes it can get a little depressing. We're gonna jump into our first little game here. Amanda, if you want to play the video, and then we'll go right into the game. We'll see how this goes. That's it. That's the entire intro video.
Hey, is that a fat guy joke? What's going on?
No. This is a game called Whale Spotting. We can open up the slide if you can. There it is. Whale Spotting with World Blockchain Roundtable. Here is your panel. Lisa couldn't make it today, but I did fit in Eric, and it's misspelled his name. I always feel awful for doing that. I thought I checked it like 3 times. I don't know what's wrong with me. Here's how to play. Oh yeah, I'm the host. How to play. Welcome to Whale Spotting, the game where we test your knowledge of whales in the real world. Try saying that 5 times fast. The panel will be given a picture of a company, and your job is to name the parent company, right?
Oh man, I thought we were gonna name whales. I was like, cool. I know.
Can I take a guess in advance at all of them?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what? That sounds very on brand for me. So go for it. Yeah.
BlackRock.
Nope, that's not it. So sorry.
Okay. Are you sure? No, you're not sure.
He's probably secretly right.
Yeah.
It's either BlackRock or Vanguard ultimately.
We'll find out. All right, here's the first one. So I'm going to give you a bunch of pictures of companies, and then you tell me who the parent company is. What is the parent company of Dairy Queen, Fruit of the Loom, Hellsberg Diamond, and Geico?
I'm guessing Kraft.
It is not Kraft. It is not Kraft. I honestly thought this was going to be an easy one.
Yes.
This is Halliburton.
It is not Halliburton.
Damn it.
Yeah, I don't actually know at all.
American General.
It is not American General. I actually knew this one too. It's funny.
It's not them.
I'll give you a hint if we want one. At one point, he was the richest man in the world.
Is it
Buffett?
what's his face? But yeah, Warren Buffett.
It's Warren Buffett. Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
Is Berkshire
Ah.
That makes
and
sense.
Warren Buffett. He looks so weird if he's not wearing a suit. I don't know.
I met him once and had no idea who he was. It was
You didn't have the cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom. I was kind of upset. Yeah.
I think it was refreshing to him to have someone be like, because I knew who Jimmy Buffett was, but I was like, Warren Buffett. I don't know.
Dad,
Yeah.
man.
I didn't recognize him without his totalitarian parrot buddy on his shoulder.
I shook his hand. I was introduced
on
to
the
him.
right?
You know. Yeah. Anyway, different story.
Yeah. It's very difficult to find a picture of him not wearing a suit. So this is what I found. All right, here's the next one. M&M's, Pedigree, Dog Food, Big Red, and Uncle Ben's.
All right, now I'm doing Kraft.
Nestle.
again.
I was gonna say, is that one Kraft? Yeah.
It's not Kraft. It's not Kraft.
Is it
Is it
General
Nestle?
Mills or?
It's not General Mills. I'll give you another hint. There is a candy bar named after
It's
the company.
Nestle, right?
Mars.
It is Mars.
Mars, right?
It is Mars.
Damn it.
Right on.
And the planet on the right is
Oh.
Mars, and the planet on the left is Arrakis. Looks
Is
very
nice.
similar.
Is it still M&M Mars or is it just Mars? That's a question.
I think it's just Mars from my research that I did this
I
morning.
think it's the country you're in too, because I think in the U.S. it was M&M Mars, but like in Europe and stuff, it was just Mars.
It is, yeah. There are very weird caveats with who owns what in what country,
And that's probably the only reason that candy bar still exists, right? Is because it is the company's name candy bar. Is that why? Because it's not very good, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the next one.
I don't remember what a Mars bars even is like.
I think a lot of white nougat.
It's the Snickers, but with almonds.
Yeah. So this person decided to capitalize on the morning breakfast
Oh.
in America. That's what they
Yeah.
I thought
Panera's
that
recent,
the
right?
Epstein
'Cause
brother
this-
bagels. I thought that said Epstein brother. I never saw that before. I don't know who the company is, and I
Really?
thought it was Epstein bagels.
I think Panera must be a recent addition because they were independent in the beginning.
did. Panera is very recent.
Yeah.
Panera's from 2019.
Okay.
Hmm.
Who was it?
Jim Cramer had a lot to say about it.
Oh boy.
Jesus, I know this one now. Damn it. No, I don't know.
Oh,
I've
is
lost
it like no, I can't remember the name. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's one of those 6 when you see the big cloud of all the logos, right? There's
These are
6 in the
all-
middle.
These are all one of the 6.
Is it Nestle?
It is not Nestle. That's a good guess, though. It's not Nestle.
Is it
It's like-
actually Dunkin' Brands? Is it
Unilever?
Dunkin' that owns it?
It is not either of those two things. Here, I'll give you a little hint. I had a feeling this one was going to be hard, so take another stab at it.
Dr. Pepper and
They
Courage.
also
PepsiCo?
own, they also own
Schweppes?
Jimmy Choo's, Body Armor, Dr. Pepper,
Is it Schweppes?
Keurig. It is not
It's not-
Schweppes.
it's not
Schweppes
Pepsi?
is owned by this company.
Is
Okay.
it Pepsi?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It is not Pepsi.
It's European, isn't it?
It is European. It is
Yeah.
a German company. Actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that we're all getting 0 points on this game.
is it Procter and Gamble?
It is not P&G. No.
It's
Damn it, I thought it was Keurig. It's right there too.
Isn't Keurig
Is it-
Nestle?
oh.
Hmm.
Well, this is popping into my head because didn't they buy Snapple too at one
They
point?
bought Snapple as well. Yes.
Oh, is it Johnson
Oh,
Johnson or
God,
one of
it's
those?
like,
one
Jesus,
of
they
those
own everything.
It's a German company.
German company.
German.
It's
based company.
Freaking
I just
I'm-
had it.
Is it? This is gonna sound stupid. Is it Jab?
It is Jab. It is Jab.
What?
Jab Holding Company. That's why I said take a stab at it. It is
Who
Jab.
knows? Yeah, who the heck? What?
Uh,
I've never heard of them.
They
The acronym
Look
is nigh unpronounceable in German. So
What's the acronym stand for?
I can't pronounce it.
They
It's
own all
the-
our jabs.
it's one of the founders' last names
Oh.
is like in there. But yeah, look them up. Not a great background for them.
Johann is an absolute bastard.
Yeah, a lot of controversial history behind this company, but check them out. Interesting
that.
history about them.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah. All right. I think there's
Did
only
you
a
say
couple more.
Nazi
left.
rising?
Such an
Not-
educational
I said
show.
not surprising. I
No.
said not surprising.
You joke. Okay.
All right. And here we go. Who owns PokerFastlane.com, Scheinhart
And Bravo.
Wig Company, Bravo, and Kitchen All?
Wigs, poker, entertainment, and kitchens.
They got their fingers in everything.
That's a pretty good strategy, though. Like just in case one industry falls over, you got a few
It
others.
strikes me as like it's got to be like a tobacco company, right?
It
Is
is
it-
not a tobacco company.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm at a loss then.
Anybody have a guess? Nope. All right. I can give you a hint. I think they have a COVID vaccine.
Oh,
No, wait, no, they don't. I lied. I'm pretty sure they don't now. You might have an appliance in your house made by them.
Like GE or something.
It's GE, General Electric.
no way.
Huh.
These are
No
all the
shit.
companies from 30 Rock.
I got a point.
So half of those companies were made up. But yeah, this is them. One more. I believe this is the last one. Spot the Whale. Who owns all these? We've got Atacama, Rivet, Bitcoin. That's
Okay.
Flicko or something like that. Some shit coin I
That would-
looked up. Den, Dragon Chain, and Dogecoin.
Is it the SEC?
It is not the SEC.
Okay.
Is it-
That's a solid guess, though. Solid guess.
Is
They're
it-
trying? They're trying.
All of us here in this room.
No, these are not DAOs. We do not. That's not all of us.
Okay. Well,
One of them is.
Oh, okay. That's
I just reviewed Floki too.
I could start listing off our investors, I guess.
Atacama.
well, who owns all of them?
Yeah, all of these companies. This is on brand for you, John. It's gonna be. I know it's gonna be good.
All right. You know what? Well, I'll just give you the answer to this one. It is. He's an alien. Satoshi Nakamoto is an alien. These are all created by aliens.
Okay.
We should just learn to bow to our alien overlords. Be easier if we can just accept it and move on.
Nice.
That's the real.
Oh,
one.
because we are all Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
Nope. It's just
We're
a
all
bunch of
aliens.
it.
Nothing that's
It's
fun.
just
Okay.
Okay.
Nope. It's the same people that created the pyramids, did all that stuff. Aliens. Thank you so much for playing. That's the game. Game over.
Game over, man.
I had a
Why them
blast.
pyramids is full of bitcoins.
Yeah, that's actually what he's buried with. There's a lot of bitcoins.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get back into those questions. Is this the next question that we're at?
That was
Yeah,
a fun
I
one.
am for-
That was a fun one, John.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. It was a lot of fun to make this morning. I am. Here's his question. Whales centrally distribute.
Certainly.
Certainly, I had to make the screen bigger so I could read it. Whales certainly disrupt markets and alter price performance up and down. Do you consider this free market participation, or should government regulations or small contracts limit this behavior? Whales exist and alter the price. Is this still the free market at work? How you answer could show a lean toward or away centralization, things that make you go, Note, limiting wallet size of a currency or token is pointless because one could simply have multiple wallets. Today, some tokens limit wallets to 1% of the token. This is a gimmick, in my opinion, because of the ability of a whale to have multiple wallets. Great. Let's start from the bottom this time. Mix things up. Sean, what do you think about this?
Why are you starting with me, dude?
So sorry.
Eric, we had more.
Let's have our guest. Let's have our guest. Eric, what do you think about this? Is this free market?
I mean, I would say regulation from a government is absurd, because then who regulates the government, right? Like you're in a situation where you've just taken a problem and moved it to a different set of actors that now have the same problem. So, almost in all cases, regulation by a central entity makes no sense. I do believe that it's okay for people to allow themselves to be regulated consensually in like cooperatives. So if I own some land and my neighbor owns some land, and the group of us all get together and we decide that some river, is our shared river, and we decide to regulate the crap out of it and don't let anybody dump stuff in it, and we're all there together, working together to do that. That's a regulation that's not centralized. And shared resources are tough. But yeah, I generally would say for DAOs or smart contract type platforms, this sort of regulation is sort of almost always fundamentally broken and goes back to a smaller group of people controlling the interest in the larger DAO. I mean, the only defense against this is just broader participation. It really is, right? I mean, I think we talked about at the very opening of the show. The biggest defense is broader participation.
And the question of who's watching the Watchmen kind of thing. If we're self-regulating, then we watch each other. Theoretically, it's
theoretically.
So I think that's interesting, because that's been brought up a few times now. That I'd love to talk about. It's just voting, right? Getting people to vote. And in America,
I don't think that's true.
I know people watch here from other places, but people like in America, like we famously aren't very active voters, right? So what is is this going to be different, where people are just going to be active now because it's crypto or whatever it is?
It's not different than existing voting systems. And in fact, it's worse in a lot of ways, because a lot of the technology around it is difficult to use in ways that traditional voting systems aren't. And the issues are harder to understand. And honestly, even like a typical American voter that shows up to vote, I mean, what are they basing their decision on? Knowledge of the issues? Rarely.
Well,
Often the last name of the guy who's running is the most important factor.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like the key here is not to get too, I think we can get too keen to try to control this, right?
Absolutely.
Right now it's right now it's a system that exists because a lot of people got in early and participated early, and they have a lot. But that doesn't have to be the way that it stays. And the way that you make it stay like that is by implementing a bunch of systems that people can game with the wealth they've already generated. So I think the big unspoken feature of blockchains as they stand and DAOs as they stand is that there aren't any or a whole boatload of downward pressure mechanisms in place to try to level the playing field. And the second we start putting those in, the second we start opening the door to creating the kind of political system we just left behind.
Joe, you want to comment on this one?
Yeah, I mean, participation, I mean, it is great. I mean, we probably still haven't passed that yet, right? That governance issue. But it's still, I think, is mapping the value of the person or the value of their behavior to whatever that system is that is being governed. Because closer you can get to the people who are actually building value, the more likely the value will be built forward, and those are the people making the decisions for how things move. And you get away from the whale effect, or at least it is definitely attenuated. And I know Dave talks a lot about the value of putting friction in certain areas to avoid people gaming the system in ways that you don't want. That you might make it more difficult. Sure, you split up all these accounts, and but it costs you enough to make it unreasonable to do that, or at least it limits the effect of those votes that aren't real people. And if they're tied to behavior, and I just happen to have a second account that isn't, the main account that I have, I still have to maintain doing things on that account in order to garner any weight in the governance. And there are a lot of imperfections, a lot of gray area. Bounty is another one where, what we have right now is completely opaque. There is no transparency to why your supposed representative in Congress voted on a certain issue. And it's almost always, it's very rarely, is it not going to be someone voting because they've been paid to vote a certain way or influenced somehow, blackmail, payments, influence peddling stuff that happens with lobbyists. And it's totally invisible to us. We have no way to see what's going on. At least with a blockchain, you can put certain things on chain with bounties so that there's an actual attraction for people to find manipulations or activities that are unhealthy to the system. The DAO itself will be able to decide over time, hey, and that's part of what we've done on Den. We've come in with the understanding that there is no perfect answer to it, but you need to watch what happens and figure out, it's like, oh, we did not foresee people doing XYZ. Do we want that? Yes, leave it. Maybe you reward it. Or on the other side, more often than not, you find people who find a hole, and it's almost like it's a bounty unto itself on the system where, holy crap, that hole's there. It's not big enough to address now, but maybe in a month, right? So anyway.
I think it's not. There's not like a real easy answer. It's hard. It's weird to think about, but these are questions that have like plagued all of mankind forever. One of the biggest shakeups was the creation of the United States, where every person had the same vote and it all counted the same. Except to this day, it's still hard for a lot of people to understand around the world. I have intelligent friends who think it's bonkers that, Brits that think that everyone's vote is the same in the United States, that they think we're nuts still. So, if you try to develop systems where it doesn't matter how much you have, everyone's vote counts the same in a DAO, then they could just have multiple accounts. So you really can't have anonymity, and it just opens up all the same questions of privacy versus KYC and knowing. But
all right, so what about this system? You just have votes are just for sale all the time, and so the only way to get a vote is to literally burn your coin or your token. So you have to actually expend money to get a vote.
Yeah, that's the friction side. That solves the sock puppet issue, or at least doesn't solve it, but it's a good answer to it, right? So
yeah, we modeled that a little bit on paper. John and I did for a concept, and it's an interesting idea because it does change the game a little bit. And we've also talked, like, another concept is the umbrella promise. If you go on Den, look, there's a layer now for the umbrella promise. We're kind of building up what it could be. So there's a draft white paper up, and basically with that one, what I like about it, there's a lot of angles, but the one that I like about it is that if you assume that corruption will continue regardless of what you do, it could be possible to redirect the flow of funds to where at least it's enriching local communities In other words, if you're going to be influencing the vote as a lobbyist, then maybe you have to influence the vote from the ground up to where, at the very least, you get the money dispersed from from Washington into the separate local communities.
Washington has the highest income per capita in the United States.
Yeah,
there's too much. There's way too much. There's way too much money that flows through that one little place in the country. That's another thing too. If you open up your mind to a lot of things, there are a lot of very interesting things that haven't been tried, which would include the ability to separate the vote from the funding. So let's say if you pay the taxes, you have you're accounted for. Here's how much you contributed to the budget, and you're the only one that can vote that money for that war or for some other type of social services, right? So someone voting for something is not going to have the effect unless they're actually contributing to, and that's at least a tighter measure to, who's funding this war, right? I don't want this war. Right. I don't want to send that money over there. I'd rather send it somewhere in the US. So, and if the people who actually put that money in, because they're not, the people that are voting for that stuff are actually getting a kickback on it's actually the inverse of what it should be. But anyway.
It's weird to say that Washington has the most highest income per capita, when if you look at the city, it's like most or even worse in some ways when it comes to poverty and crime and all. So such a huge. So it basically means that those big numbers are even bigger because there's so much on the other side that's dragging the numbers down. So if you eliminated most of the poor or the average, below average people, those numbers would be probably triple. The chat's really kicking ass today. There's whole other shows that have been in there, but was it I Am brought up a Star Trek episode, Intruder. There's another Star Trek episode more recently, Voyager had one where it was just 100% democracy, and it was 20th century, and at the time it was when social media and stuff was just starting out. So this is probably, good God, I'm so old, 20 years ago. It was more than that. Oh my God. Anyway, but it was a total democracy, and you had a little badge, and if you bumped into someone, you get a downvote. If you said something that was offensive, downvote. If you did something nice, or your friends, you did something good for your friends, to give you an upvote. And over your lifetime, this woman went to a coffee shop, and they're like, "Oh, we don't serve anyone that has more than 10,000 downvotes." And she's like, "Look, most of those are from when I was in college. I was a bitch, and I was a terrible person. That's like, I just want to buy a cup of coffee." They're like, "No, get out of here before I call the police."
Is this Black Mirror?
No, this is 25 years before that. So but if you got over a certain amount,
sounds like it though.
If you got over a certain amount of downvotes, they arrested you.
There was an episode about that in Black Mirror too.
And then they would you had to go on TV, and then you had to go on an apology tour. This is 25 years ago. An apology tour to all these shows.
Brilliant, really.
And at the end of the apology tour, if your votes didn't go down or go up, your upvotes didn't go up or your downvotes didn't go down, they'd kill you. That was the punishment if you went over a certain amount. And then no, wait, this was the Orville. This was Star Trek Voyager did it too. But
I think every show has done this.
This guy went down. The away team went down, and he was doing a weird dance on a statue, and somebody filmed it with their phone, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, you're under arrest. You've got 10 million downvotes because you were humping the statue of Betsy Ross."
So you go viral, and it leads to your arrest, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
this is the kind of thing that we're seeing start to be played around with governments and stuff in real life. This sort of social credit score thing. No, you can't take the train. No, you can't spend your money on that item. That's the real dangerous dystopian future that I fear. That's
Absolutely.
the bizarro den where, yeah, it's still behavior based, but in a super dark kind of way.
Yeah, it's like the next stage of Bread and Circus.
That's the
getting
central
the
bank digital
audience
currency
involved in the circuit.
Right. Yeah.
And they're picking the lion to get killed. You know, they're picking the gladiator right from their seat.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. You chose to spend your money on this, and this type of product. So your value, your value to the country is now less than somebody who chose to spend their
And
money
see,
on
and
that.
that depends. That becomes a question of who is setting those rules, those policies. If it's not the very people who are being rewarded for that, that's where it's broken. So if you
And that's-
have central planners saying, "Oh, we don't want you to buy tobacco or bullets," that's the issue. You know,
And that's where it
people-
seems to always go too. That seems to be the issue, because if you look at even like recently with I don't know if you've been following the Wasabi wallet, CoinJoin,
Absolutely.
UTXO censorship
Yep.
debate.
Mhm.
The thing, you know, it does not seem to be so much of an argument about don't let bad people participate. It seemed to be more about an argument of, okay, who is making this list of and deciding who a bad person is, right? And that's
Right,
where
and that-
I think,
And that preloads the question, right? Like in a bad way, I think. Like I think the question we should be asking is, ought there be a list?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, like,
You know,
and
there was
it's hard.
There's a
Go ahead.
great article on why email failed to be the decentralized system that it should be. And
Yeah,
this article is relevant to protocols like Nostr and blockchain and Bitcoin and stuff like that. And the reason why the article is relevant is because it talks about abuse of the protocol, not being defense against abuse, not being baked into the protocol at the very beginning. And the result of that being blacklists, and the result of that being paid blacklists and paid to get off blacklists, and levels and levels and levels of increasingly centralized abuse protocols that make it to the point now where if you want to send an email to someone, you absolutely have to pay someone else to do so. If you attempt to do it yourself, you will certainly wind up in their spam folder, or at the or more likely not even get routed at all. And that's incredible how we went from a system where I would be able to spin up an SMTP server as little as 15 years ago and be able to route an email to someone myself. And now it is absolutely impossible to do so. So yeah, protecting a system from abuse at the beginning is critical.
Well, there's the thing though. It needs to be considered, but at the same time, you never know what the abuse, what shape it will come in. You can't put some, because if they would have put something in place, it would have failed too. Especially back then, because they had no way to anticipate how the modern spam stuff would develop, and
the primary defense that was proposed to prevent spam was proof of work on the part of the sender. That was the original defense, and that went to the W3, and I got involved. And Paul Vixie basically vetoed the shit out of it like crazy for no discernible reason until people found out that he was most likely compromised by the types of people who want to destroy these systems and who want to censor our behavior. Most likely, so you think about, like, there are very few gatekeepers, and when people in power realize that these gatekeepers can either decide a system becomes central or not, they just pay you off, right? There's like, oh yeah, you're in charge of the Nostr protocol, Fiat Joff. Guess what? You know, we now know you.
But
well, I mean, and that's
modern spam. Other than you have centralized stuff with lists, you know, it came from this domain, and therefore we can accept it or not. But the modern systems, you know, what Google did so well early in Gmail, and why everyone started using Gmail is because their spam filters were so well done.
AI.
If you tried to run your own mail server, even in the early 2000s, late 2000s. It was hell. You know, you could, but it would eat up, you know, all of your processing on it if you ran it. And back then, I even, although crypto didn't exist, but if you had even the semi-central, more of a, you know, the way that you had Gmail and you had Hotmail and you have a few others, right? That they very well could have introduced bounty systems where, look, you know, if you send it to someone, you know, it's going to go through. But if you send it to someone you don't know, you have the ability to pay them to look at it, and it's going to then cost you if you want to spam people. right? And that's what it should.
That was the earliest use case proposed for Bitcoin and proof of work was around email prevention, spam prevention. In fact, if you read all the articles back then, that was the main and most important use case. And it still didn't work because the gatekeepers around it have done everything they can to prevent it. And honestly, if you were to do it today, if you were to come out and go right down to the W3 and get involved in their list and try to say, hey, why don't we add Lightning support or proof of work? You will get shouted down so quickly by these gatekeepers.
We have that today.
Oh,
It's not email. It's our DM system on Den. We have that today where you can attach a bit of value to a message to get to the top of their list or to incentivize them to open it and read it. And so if they do that, they get paid for reading your email. So if it's even if you're spamming people, it's going to make it more and more expensive to do so. So it helps that a little bit.
Den is cool.
But yeah, the email thing, I lost business over that shit. I tried to go a little bit. It wasn't even that far out of bounds. I paid GoDaddy for a domain and let them manage my email, but it was still firstname@bandname.com. And so it got flagged all the time as spam and like didn't get received and stuff like that because it wasn't a Gmail or a whatever.
My domain name gets flagged because it's too short.
Oh no.
And also because I have a number in the middle of it.
And the crazy thing to me is that anybody thinks that the folks who are in charge right now who control the existing systems don't recognize this weak spot in the way that these systems are built, right? Like they're looking for opportunities to create little centralization bottlenecks. Like and these are the fights they will pick, right? Because they're not as dumb as they appear. They're not stupid. They've been watching and learning very quietly, and they know exactly where they're going to pick their battles already.
That's right.
That's great. So we're coming to the end of the show. So I just also want to say that I kind of have the answer for all of our problems. We talked about putting together a panel that'll kind of just govern whales and kind of govern things. And I think it should just be the mom clause. Everybody, all of us have a mom that's like, everybody's heard somebody say, I have the greatest mom in the world. Well, if you have one of those, you put their name in a hat, and then we rotate through the different moms governing every few weeks. And then they judge if people are doing things that are illegal or bad or whatever it is.
Judge of character.
Yeah, that's who you use to judge the character. Because honestly, I thought the fitness test that you mentioned during the lawyer bar exam was great. I'd love to see all these lawyers and banking people do some push-ups and sit-ups. So maybe we can get like a mom clause in there. The things you do have to be passable by this group of moms. There's a baking show about that. Anyway, that's the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here on World Blockchain Roundtable. It's been an hour, and that's how long we've got. We're going to stay here afterwards and talk current events, which will be super exciting. We're not going to Twitter Spaces. I think
we all have to vote, right? Because it didn't have, it was like I vote to do that.
I think we're like 0.13 away or something. 0.17.
It didn't pass yet. It didn't pass
well,
yet.
Sean wants to vote. And I don't know, and it's going to be public once he votes anyway. So, Sean, do you just want to weigh in verbally? And that'll be okay. So, what is your vote, sir? What is your vote? You want to bring it up on screen again?
he's why am I the big head? Anyway, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter because I gotta go at anyway.
Yeah, to put it for the after show, it's a really good idea. I mean, if it was like if you had a Patreon or something, this would be the after show kind of party thing. So that people would actually pay for.
Yeah, we like to. We hang out, we talk about the show a little bit, and then we talk about current events because we don't talk current events in the show. You got to hang out afterwards. This has been a great show. I've had so much fun, but we're going to wrap up. Thank you, panel, for being here. It's been an amazing show. It's been so fun. Dave, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'll plug Den again. It's free. Go sign up. You get rewarded for doing stuff that's good for the community, and it's a different take on how to do a DAO than you might have seen elsewhere, and it's pretty darn easy to use as well. So go check out Den.
Joe, anything you want to tell the people?
I'll plug the roundtable that we've this is the 101st show. I wasn't able to be on the 100th, unfortunately. I really wanted to, and it seemingly works. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and the more people that participate, the more you get people involved and with some ability to change how the show works, which is fun. So I don't know, it's a good model. It's been around for quite a while. It started as a meetup group way back. This show did, and this was the way to kind of make it, especially with COVID and everything, to open it up. So anyway.
Greg, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'd like to plug what a cool thing that's coming up here that we're all going to be doing, or at least some people are going to be doing with this. We've got the upcoming Crypto Joe Rogan Lair that is now in the offing. So the idea behind that is not to actually try to emulate Joe Rogan, but for crypto. But in a sense, yes, right? Like what we need is a long form conversation to get to know people, right? And to get to know, I mean, everybody likes talking to Elon Musk about, SpaceX and Tesla, but it's even more fun to talk to him about the Fermi paradox, right? Like, so there are people in crypto who have never had the chance to have this conversation because they don't get on Rogan very much. Like the people he has on for crypto are kind of, mainstream or whatever. And that is what it is. But I think there needs to be an answer to that for crypto. And that's what we're going to do.
The Fermi paradox is a fun thing to talk about. Absolutely.
It is.
Eric, anything you want to plug or say to the people watching? Thank you so much for being on the show. Also, I met Eric in New York doing improv and stuff. Hilarious guy, super fun. And if you have other shows, invite him on. He's amazing. Eric, anything you'd like to plug or say?
No, I mean, if you want to look into what I do, it's a encryption system that uses a decentralized key store using devices you own rather than using passwords to encrypt stuff, which is safer ultimately. When you first set it up, it asks you to, make a backup of your BIP12 words, so you can see your the roots in crypto. It uses all the same libraries. We use the Ethereum public key to do tape pairings to create encrypted search. So it's a pretty cool platform if you want to look into it.
Great. And Sean, anything you'd like to plug here?
Usual. Check me out on Twitter, YouTube. I got
Great.
a show on Tuesday with Lisa. Michael and Lisa, first half on her show, second half on mine. That's about it.
All right, great. And I've been your host, John Branch. You can find me at johnbranch.info. I've been putting clips of the show up on YouTube, so go check those out. Really fun stuff. Thank you so much for being here. I guess we'll run our little video and then we'll hang out afterwards and talk current events. Thanks. And
while nuclear weapons states can exert unlimited violence over even millions of individuals, strong cryptography means that a state, even by exercising unlimited violence, cannot violate the intent of individuals to keep secrets from them. Cryptography is the ultimate form of non-violent direct action.
And we're back.
yeah, oh yeah,
Nice.
we're still here.
We're back.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Eric. It was a lot of fun having you here. It was nice talking things other than improv with you.
Yeah. It's cool.
Speaking of which, I gotta head to a sketch show rehearsal. So
All right. Well, thanks again, John.
I gotta go.
Yeah, as always, man. Great show.
A lot of fun. Hope people enjoyed the game and stuff. I started catching up on the chat and YouTube. There was a lot. It was fun reading all that stuff. So have fun talking current events, and I'll catch y'all next week.
Cool. See you, John.
Take care.
Yeah, Sean, I'll help you figure out what's going on with your Den login afterwards too.
Okay.
So what's been going on in the world, guys?
Mustache on. Like
Hmm?
that's the sketch comedy that he's working on. He comes back with like a
He's got
mustache.
he's got a mustache.
Hello,
It's like-
everyone. It's not me. It's not John. I'm Bill. Yeah.
I can tell you from watching him in the jams and stuff that he's done that he's definitely takes influence from this World Blockchain Forum and some of his characters he does. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, you can
Nice.
you can see it if you ever go see him live. You might see him on like a Wednesday night.
Yeah,
or whatever.
we
Nice.
we did a demo of running a show on Den once with John locally here in Gainesville at a live studio. It was really great. Had a great time. Hilarious guy. He drugged me up on stage. I don't know if he thought I did improv or if he thought it would be funny to make me do improv. But
Well, it
he was
depends.
like
Did he drug you up on stage, or
Yeah,
did he
it sounds
on
like
stage.
drag you?
I
He
literally
dragged
thought
me.
he like
drugged me and
microdosed
brought me
you
on
when
Yeah.
you said that.
I maybe so because I said yes, and maybe he had drugged me and then he dragged me up there. But no, really, like I had a lot of fun, and to be honest, John's one of the people that made me appreciate improv and just comedy more than I had in the past. I just wasn't giving it a fair shake, or I wasn't looking at it like the art form that it is until I met John. So yeah, funny
You know,
guy, funny guy.
you saying that it's kind of odd because there's something I've been thinking about with it comes to current events, but how like you have a better appreciation for comedy and that. I think in the past few years, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like these certain professions they were like arbiters of a certain thing, and they always have been. But it was almost like it wasn't real. Like comedians 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that, when someone said comedians are actually the guardians of free speech. Like, no, they're not. They're comedians. They're silly. Look at Gallagher. He's not an actual free speech. And then journalists are the guardians of truth. They're like, well, kind of do that, but nowadays you can really see it. It's where like these comedians that speak the truth, like Rogan and Russell Brand, like they're beacons of for free speech. Bill
Yeah.
Maher, even. I mean, they're like, whoa, what's going on?
It's
You can see that that's how it is.
it seems like it's been that way for maybe longer than we realized too. Jesters and stuff who were able to poke fun at the monarch without getting slaughtered. They were the only ones.
You always used to have
that kind of thing.
to go back to that point to say how but comedians nowadays they're not, and it's weird how like the veil's kind of been pulled back, and we're getting you can see it, where real journalists are. I mean, look at Assange. Look at what's going on with them. They really are. They're persecuted now, and you can see why we had the amendment put in place. Why the press was so important. Why those safeguards were there, because they were they are the protectors of the truth. And it's I think it's interesting to me that like they always have been that, but now it's much more obvious.
Yeah, well, I mean, and there's this need for anti-establishment voices, right? Like people are so well, I feel like we're coming out of it a bit more. Like there was a time when I mean, that we can all remember because it was like less than 6 months ago, where it was a lot harder to make any kind of outside of the line statement in public, in any kind of public forum, and you would just get tagged for it, right? Now you can actually say some of those things, on the internet in places that aren't already set aside for that, and you can say some of those things in mixed company, right? Like, I was banished from my family Thanksgiving, for example, for refusing to get the RNA vaccine, and my parents have ended up apologizing for that, and like tried to patch it up and said, yeah, we were wrong, sorry. This sort of stuff is happening, and I think that's a positive move. But yeah, comedians have led the charge back to reality,
and art in general, not just comedy too. If you've ever heard Joe talk about memes and the importance of memes and how I don't want to speak for you, Joe, but it's just something I remember you discussing intelligently that made me think, oh, damn, you know what? There is at least good memes. There's on
that. I mean, it's like during what was going on in that period of time when what is it? Gingivitis outbreak, whatever it is that you like to refer to it as. During that period, it seemed that the only way to communicate certain ideas was with a meme, because a meme could literally cut through. It wouldn't be censored. In fact, they tried to censor Pepe's, and they tried to censor various forms, NPCs. If you posted NPC memes learn to code when they were laying off all of the journalists at the New York Times, you would get banned on Twitter. Is it crazy as it is? And so they did try to ban some of them, but generally, the interesting thing about a meme, and that's why I do think that that's the future of political conversation, or at least comms, is the fact that you can boil down something that everybody knows that something humorous tends to have some element of truth, even though it might be blown out of proportion or whatever. But the meme is the way to get that idea straight into somebody's head. Just like, I mean, if you guys know the difference, like say how Beethoven would have described music, that music can go straight into you and you can't control it. It evokes emotions, provided it's good music, little of which exists anymore, but that it will go straight into you and evoke emotions. And I say that right, but popular music anyway. And the interesting thing about it is a meme is very similar. It's that you can ingest it like that. It's hilarious. If good memes, not all of them are hilarious, right? But it's an interesting thing if you can use humor or some other emotion to get people to say yes, right? I don't have to sit and listen to William F. Buckley talk for 30 minutes to pull down what he's saying.
And importantly, right, they still don't have the wherewithal to build a capsule network that can then go to a large language model that can then serve as a real-time filter on images. I know. So Google, they can't do what they do to Unicode, right?
You upload something to Google Photos and it's always searchable, right? I could take a picture of a sign or something, I can go back and find it. But guess what? If there are certain words in those pictures, in those memes, they're totally blacklisted. You can't see it.
Unless you pick a clever font and you arrange them in an off skew
Well, it's always kind of been that way. I mean, we call them memes, but if you look back as far as you want to look back, I mean, political humor has always been, and some of it was, like really, really profound. It was always a cartoonist that would, just make the picture that, like you said, was a 20-minute rant, and it was just all boiled down to one picture of that said it all, and it said it all to anybody.
Yeah, and remember that cartoonist that almost got assassinated by that Middle Eastern group?
In the UK, the Charlie Hebdo thing.
That did. A lot of them got killed.
A lot of them got offed. Yeah, a long time. Yeah, especially
the one in Paris. What was the group in Paris? It was a
Charlie Hebdo.
Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah. Well, and then we had the Draw Muhammad.
Dangerous
contest.
Job, man.
We had the Draw Muhammad contest in Texas, like a few weeks after that, because of that, and the media doesn't report on that because it was a convention. It was Draw Muhammad, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, that same thing's going to happen," and it did. A bunch of terrorists came and shot in the parking lot before they got in.
That the FBI was in the parking lot following the guy that was shooting the guy that shot the security guard, and they didn't stop him. They drove away. That they already knew the guy was going to do it. Anyway.
The funny thing to me there is like how many degrees of separation do you have to get before it's a drawing of Muhammad? Like if you draw a box and label it Muhammad, and then like, is that still a cartoon about Muhammad? Or like, where does the line go?
I mean, I'm on neither side of. I'm not on either side of that line. I think they're both wrong personally. But even in the U.S., where art is, speech is supposed to be protected, and art is typically the last form of speech to get stomped out. It's just like, look at what happens if you get the citizens to do it themselves, or the private companies to do it for the government. Basically, that's where art gets sort of attacked. If you look at what happened to the Dixie Chicks when they said, "Hey, we probably shouldn't even invade Iraq. We probably shouldn't do that," and then people like were bulldozing piles of their records like it was, like it's a repeat of like it's like what am I trying to say? Basically, getting your citizens to do it for you is the way the government tends to stomp out art, I guess, right? To
I remember that. It's kind of like the Greg and his parents thing, because everybody was so caught up in that time. The Dixie Chicks were like, "Hey, President Bush is an idiot." We're like, "Go back to shut up." You know, it's
Yeah.
like it was odd.
Right.
Odd
Or like
time
if you
and
called
odd
out during that time period that this was probably blowback from the Mossadegh thing, right? Like the CIA didn't admit that publicly until 2013. So like you couldn't actually point to a record that said that except for like every unofficial source. Yeah. It's a well managed narrative. What's worth it? They may not get anything else right, but they manage the narrative pretty effectively.
So what events? If this is current events, what is the thing? What's
Man.
Well, I think
What's
personally the Tucker Carlson thing is a huge deal.
Oh, there's that. Yeah, I saw
that's all
something.
over.
I don't
big deal.
watch Tucker, but I saw something from him this morning where I guess he's hopping on to somebody. I think he's making a suggestion that he's getting on to some other network or somebody else's thing, or I
Dude,
don't know.
that guy just has to fart and 80 million people watch it. I mean,
I think it's going to be the
no
beginning.
problem making money.
Well,
Yeah, he's got a draw for
between
sure.
if you only
I
have
don't
one
think it's going to be
person
about
farting
making
the
money,
truth,
though. I think it's going to be the
thing
beginning
that
of the
usually gets it.
decentralization of news. I think this is the nail in the coffin of the mainstream media, air quotes thing. I think that
Hopefully.
it's like when they tried to shut Rogan up on YouTube and other stuff. He's like, okay, fine, and they tried to put him out to pasture, but everybody went to the pasture. So I think this is going to be that kind of thing where it legitimizes the alternative media where everything is there's a level playing
it's
field.
not like he's the most watched show. It's not. It was he had, and I don't remember the numbers, but he has significant multiples of what any of the competitors had for viewership. Right? I mean, it was massively. And, not a lot of people watch the news anymore, right? CNN is not what it was.
That's definitely the case. Yeah.
So he has all of those viewers, and they fire him for whatever, whether it was because of the war or the pharma talk. I don't know, but anyway, I do agree, and there's probably some political strategy involved in that as well with the election coming up, but. I do hope that it causes people to say, I don't have to go to one of these freaking 4 or 5 networks.
Yeah.
I can go
That's
anywhere.
already the case. Like people are growing up, young adults today are very used to like finding people on the internet, watching their stream while they play video games and talk about things on Twitch or something. Like it's normal to like find random people that you resonate with, and then you listen to what they have to say instead of just one central location, which is maybe good for decentralization. And it's also the case that like the old way is dying out kind of literally with age, with people not being around anymore. I don't know, you see like people making fun of boomers all the time about just doing things the way that they've always done it in the past, like not the way that things are done today. Yeah. Even simple stuff. Like I saw somebody pointing out, there was somebody on Facebook saying, hey, people that are campers that go camping, what's the best way to do TV? And it was like, that's such like an old person idea of, I'm going to go camping. How am I going to watch TV? Just people putting it into this, like, that's the old boomer way of doing things. I don't have a problem with boomers. Like but that's what kind of I see the conversation being, is they're still holding on to this old way of doing things that we don't value anymore and that we don't like anymore. And things are changing. So they're changing anyway. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but it's different. And it's not CNN and it's not Fox and it's not cable TV kind of thing anymore.
Yeah.
Me and Lisa talked about that this week. It's like she said she has no way to even watch like TV. Like if there was a show on a network, you have to wait for it to go on streaming. Or it's on the network, but then it goes on Hulu or somewhere else, and that's where you watch it. And that's true. There's not a lot of people that just watch regular.
Right.
television.
There's like my neighbor. I think that's maybe just my neighbor. Like the other day, he was trying to tell me about Belushi's got a show about growing marijuana, like growing Belushi or something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. It's like, yeah, it's fascinating, this and that, and yada yada. And he was like, it's on channel such and such around 9 o'clock on this one day. And I was like, oh, I don't know how to do that, man. Sorry.
Every year after Christmas, I'm like, how do I watch the ball drop? What do I do? What I'm like downloading apps, and it's like a pain in the ass
Stop
just
doing
to
that.
watch network TV for the
And so,
the night where I can see the ball drop on network TV.
And so maybe this is the current event then, because like right now we're in this propaganda war between nation states where everyone's trying to influence the other nations, either citizens or military members or whatever. And
I think that's really what's going on.
Hold on.
That's absolutely going on.
Amanda, can you put up a Ham for I Am's comment? That would be.
I think we're trying to influence our own citizens.
Oh yeah. I'll take Tucker. Sure.
Yeah,
Bring it on.
What's Den.Social? Yeah.
But like, you think some nations are doing propaganda better than others
I think
because
propaganda has always been internally directed.
Sure.
Absolutely. I think
I'm not.
like,
no,
like
no.
it's
I
all
wasn't
about
trying to
I mean,
suggest
like,
that.
it's never been about really except with the exception of like leaflets being dropped over war zones. When we're talking about mass media communications, it's always been aimed at.
Well, that's used to be the way you had to do it. You used to have to literally.
Yeah,
I was a Tomahawk tech. We had a kit
that adopted this technology for propaganda early on are the ones that are doing the best at it today.
Right. There's even like when we talk about like Air America or like the the supposedly outwardly facing U.S. propaganda media, right? The congressionally authorized propaganda. That stuff is really just propaganda directed at us, so that we think, so to shape what we think about what kind of propaganda we're spreading.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we don't direct propaganda internally, but directing it externally has always been a thing. We used to have a kit that dropped leaflets over a city on its way to a target, kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? That used to be the way that you had to do it. Now you can just pay Facebook to run an ad that reaches specific demographics to make sure that your propaganda that's, maybe you have 1,000 different versions of it with 1,000 different target demographics so that it's just really efficient right now, And I think maybe some nations are doing it better than others because they keep up with technology and trends and the way that people access information.
Did you guys ever watch, anybody here besides me watch Westworld?
The old one, not the new one.
The new one? So anybody here watch the new one?
I watched
Season
the old
3.
I watched
was
the
a
old
weird one.
Yeah.
And the setup was this AI that they set up to basically personalize propaganda for everyone. Right down to the point where they could figure out that it would steer your life path. And the whole season was about breaking that system. I think that season was prophetic. I think that is exactly what we're facing right now.
There was
or at least the prospect of
I
being
think it's what's
created.
already. I think that was the entire intent of
Prospect of being created anyway.
Of LifeLog and Facebook was that very thing.
I once met Howard Bloom in Brooklyn. He's the author of the Lucifer Principle, and he had a interesting thing that he was describing was an AI that would learn your wants and learn your desires, learn everything about you, and be able to tell you the optimal path to achieve the goals that you set for it. And he was talking about this kind of conceptual thing where it's your own personal AI. It gives you the power of an AI without having to be a non-biological organism. And I was like, oh, that's real interesting. And while he was talking, right, the whole time he was talking, his wife kept coming in and like bringing us snacks, and like we had a bunch of people kind of like us right now, but like it was a bunch of like thought leaders back in the day. It was all the H+ people, which is formerly the transhumanists. We were all sitting in a room talking about this shit, which I used to really would be a fan of before it went off the rails. And this conversation is actually kind of how it went off the rails.
The liberty-minded transhumanists went away somewhere. I don't know where they went.
Exactly. It was John Hughes. John Hughes disappeared.
It used to be Klaus Schwab. It used to be
exactly. It used to be John Hughes.
It used to be Kurzweil.
That's right. Right. Kurzweil's amazing. So if you look at what happened was, we're having this conversation. His wife's coming in, he's giving us snacks, and she's like, she got like a different chair for somebody because she could tell he was uncomfortable, and like she was really making it so like we all felt like we were like having a nice time, like very subtly, very like facilitating the conversation, keeping us in communication with each other. And then at the end of his whole spiel about this AI, I was like, you realize, of course, you already have one. And he had no idea what I was talking about.
That's awesome.
That's the difference, though.
That is
The
awesome.
AI will never love you, right? So
Right.
Well, I mean,
So much better
you
the
might
other
pretend
way.
to.
Yeah.
You know,
At a certain point, it becomes like, what's the difference? You know,
right.
if people are just knee-jerk responders to their programming, their meat programming, then what's the difference between that and
There
AI?
is, and there is the joke, right? Like, are you conscious? Are you sentient? You can ask somebody that, but you know, we assume with people, if the response comes back from a non-human intelligence, is it sentient? Like, do we know?
There's a really good,
If it's a plausible response, we can't really tell.
Annalee Newitz, an author I had not heard of before. I read this book called Autonomous. I just not too long ago finished. This is a fascinating book written in 2017 that apparently William Gibson and Neil Stephenson both were like, okay, this is, Stephenson said that this is to biotech and AI what Neuromancer was to the internet, which is a pretty like glowing review, right? And it kind of is. And I don't know, I just wanted to bring that up. You should read that because it is
I'm interested.
It's terrifying. It's plausible. It's not too far in the future, and it talks about kind of the trajectory of AI in this sort of, will they ever have rights, and what are the implications of that? For example, like, human slavery became legal because of AI getting human rights, and if you're able to own an AI that has human rights, why can't you own a human? It's one of these sort of logical issues that played out. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of weird shit that happens.
Well, I mean, Auto GPT. Have you
did a
guys
good
seen
job.
this in the news? Have you guys seen anything to do with Auto GPT?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch. I don't know. I've seen mixed review. I've seen a lot of obvious. This is cool. This is exciting stuff. But I've seen some people.
If you like that stuff, I would recommend the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. Murderbot's very cool. Yeah, Murderbot's awesome. It's definitely in that vein of kind of what it means to be intelligent and human and stuff like that.
I think
pretty cool.
I really get this is an old throwback, but I don't know if you guys are fans of Dan Simmons, the Hyperion Cantos, man.
Oh really, yeah, really Hyperion's amazing.
It gave a, I think, prescient perspective on what a super intelligent AI among us would be really like if it wasn't overtly negative. It was if it didn't care about us, if it thought we were thought of us in the same way that we think of ants, what we would get is the Hyperion AI conglomerate.
Ants are doing incredibly well because of us.
That's true. That is true.
They thrive on our productivity, our ability to pull things out of the soil and till fields, and they love us.
They do, and we don't, out of a sense of nostalgia, go out of our way to extinguish them.
And more importantly, they're an important trophic level to keep the ecosystem in balance, and we would never kill them. I don't doubt that an AI would similarly see us as, well, I don't technically need people, but they do produce useful machines, and they do kind of keep the base layer going. And why would I stop them? Like they're not in my way.
That said, have you ever seen anyone move the plans for a freeway because of a giant ant colony?
Oh, never. No, just plow right over it. Right.
So if it needed
honestly, I haven't seen anyone move the plans for a freeway because of a black neighborhood either, let alone ants. Right. Like, I mean, like it's a pretty high bar.
We invent new eminent domain laws, so we don't have to care what people think. Right?
Absolutely.
Imagine a super intelligent AI, right? Like it just needs some mass, and these things are all close.
But at the same time, we would need ants to colonize Mars. We need them. We absolutely cannot colonize Mars without creating like an algae that can survive there, and an insect that can, break down lignin, and a whole base layer ecosystem on Mars would probably be a selection of these things.
Right.
So you can't just
I would
But-
hope an AI would pick us. I would just hope.
Right, but a culture, right, is a lot more than just the survival of a species, right? So you wouldn't want humanity to survive in like a sustainably restartable population in cryo, just waiting for when it's needed.
Oh
right?
no, that would be rough. But at the same time, I just don't see hope for humanity with the intelligence levels we currently have. Even if we genetically modified ourselves to be super hyper intelligent and like blah blah blah, which we might do. Like I could see people starting. Probably people have already done it. And you don't know, like those German athletes that did with their muscles, right? Like there was a bunch of people who got caught out for giving themselves the Lance Armstrong gene artificially. So yeah, have people already modified their kids for intelligence? Probably. Does it work? Probably. Is it making a big difference? Probably not, because I think there's limits to our meat brain. And I don't think we're going to exceed those limits significantly. I'm talking,
Well, I mean, we already
several orders of magnitude.
Right? We already do.
Yeah, we already do.
It'll get faster. It'll get lower latency. It'll get more integrated.
Well, yeah, it will get more integrated, but we're also seeing, I think, Greg, you maybe alluded to this earlier, where people are thinking about it differently. It used to be that convenience ruled everything. Like it was super convenient and we didn't really mind that. Like we didn't, first of all, understand what Facebook was doing, I think, when they first sort of took over with their model of what, their version of what Web 2 is. But at least people that I talk to in Europe, like when I go to Germany to visit my wife's side of the family, they're very much more aware and willing to go to inconvenience themselves to get away from this sort of, I'm not in control of my own data. I have to use one of the things that one of the conversations was about, like, why do I, as a German with a German bank, have to use an American company's app store to access my bank? Kind of thing, So there are definitely there is definitely some sort of, I don't know if it's an awakening necessarily,
right?
But it's more of an understanding of
why do I need intermediary at
stuff.
all, right? Like we're getting close to that.
Yeah, so we'll see. On one hand, people want to get away from that. On the other hand, like in the name of, I've seen things in the name of interoperability that seemed like it was like super fake in a way to placate those types of people, but still keep everybody in the same database. I've seen like interoperability among messengers, as a conversation in Europe, where there's laws being discussed about making companies with disparate networks for comms interoperable, where you could message someone on Facebook with your Signal app or something like that. You know what I mean? Which seems like, okay, convenient as hell, but does that not just put everything back into one big fat monolithic system again? So.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's what they want, right? Like they want it like that. I don't think we should have any illusions about the fact that, as we develop the technology to move away from centralized solutions to these problems, right? That they're going to push hard to shove us back into that model. Just look what Gensler's doing right now. That's another good current event to touch on, right?
Shoving everything into this sort of
the rule change that the SEC proposed that they brought back up. Have you guys
looked into this? You mean?
Yeah.
You're talking about the definition
the
of
broadened
exchange?
definition of exchange that basically sweeps in anything. And specifically sweeps in decentralized systems that are federated across different project teams.
Yeah. No, it's not even the funny thing is
what is that?
It would outline everything, but they won't be enforcing it on baseball cards or Pokemon cards or classic cards.
Well, so
yeah.
Eric, are you not familiar with this yet?
No, I.
Okay, so they proposed a redefinition or a broadening of the definition of exchange that is currently under an extended public comment period right now, but is basically in a mode where they're planning to shove it on through unless Congress stops them. Which it's a long wait for a train to come, but
this is a way of including Uniswap in the list of exchanges.
It's that is one of the consequences of it, but the real thrust of it is super broad, right? It actually is more of a way to make sure that the only way that you can get through SEC licensure as an exchange is if you are centralized, and they're going to treat everything else as an unlicensed exchange if it can't comply, and therefore, ipso facto, nothing decentralized can get registered. Right?
Even the decentralized stuff, the protocol.
I have an
underlying
interesting story about attacks on decentralization.
Yeah, there's plenty of those stories, I bet. I wasn't even going to say anything that interesting. I was just going to talk about how the front end to decentralized exchanges are centralized, even if the underlying liquidity pools and stuff are decentralized. The front end and the access to them, unless you're technical enough to know how to access the liquidity pool on your own, the front end gets centralized and filters and sensors anyway.
Well, except for with GPT chat, right? Like you can actually have it write the code for a static page that will interact with the smart contract that you want it to, and put it on IPFS very easily.
And that's true. You don't even need
anybody.
You don't even need chat. You could any developer could build that and just distribute it. It's like, oh, here you download this.
Oh yeah, it's easy to get the code for Uniswap running on your local browser and have it evade all the filters. I've done it myself to access things that were blocked, because my general instinct is, if it's blocked, I might want a piece of that.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's blocked, it's seriously.
It must be interesting. If it's interesting enough to block it, that makes me want to know more about it.
And until the restrict comes out, there's nothing they can do to you for circumventing their controls.
Same with me. If something is censored, I assume it to be true unless proven otherwise, because the only reason they'd be censoring it is if it were actually true.
Yeah, that was an amazing point.
Well, I guess they might be censoring it if it weakens their argument, even if it's
observation. That do you remember? Is there any time in history that you guys can remember that some entity tried to censor something and it didn't end up being true? And there's nothing I can think of.
There are a couple examples. Some psyops are clever enough to outwit people who look for that heuristic.
That's right. They'll censor.
So you have to be careful about double blind.
Well, okay, but what? Give me one. Is it flat Earth? Because it hasn't been censored. Is it
the Roswell, New Mexico alien bodies?
Has that been censored? No, it's not really been censored.
It
No,
was
New York
censored at one
Times.
point.
How is that censored?
That's not.
It was a story that was censored, except in tabloids, for a very, very long time.
Except in tabloids. Okay, it's not been censored. That's what I'm saying.
It's the opposite of censored. They wanted everyone to be. They wanted everyone to think about it.
They might pretend like they censored on a certain outlet or something, but yeah,
I get it. It's a phenomenon called a limited hangout. It has happened. I'm coming up short for an example right now. If I can think of a good one.
I'm sure it's happened. It's just I don't think there's a lot of great examples of it.
I know a good one actually.
The aliens in Roswell thing, that one was perpetuated to cover for something else. Like, let them think it's aliens, kind of thing.
I know of one right now you could give me that I would be hard pressed to deny publicly because I would get canceled, but I'm not going to go there, right? So, but there aren't very many that I've ever seen that would be, like, oh yeah, that they don't want you thinking, they don't want you knowing that, they don't want you repeating that, There have been a lot of recent ones, obviously, but
that's the thing. If they're recent, they haven't had time to be shown. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got to look back in 20 years and see.
30 years ago, you could say, "Well, obviously, Area 51, it's not real," and they're trying to censor people from saying that.
A friend of mine once consulted for the Department of Defense, and I don't go into too many details because I don't want it to get traced back. But basically, he was advocating for a very, very broad decentralization to resist foreign influence. And he had based it on some real world attacks that had occurred at real agencies where people had been compromised. And 7 days later, he was hit by a driver and died on the side of a road. So, and he was a very close friend. I knew his kids. I hung out at his house. He's a sweetheart, wrote books, published them, just like a lovely man, lovely family man. But, I will say it is when you actually have a lot of influence and you actually threaten people who really fucking matter, it is not safe. You have to be really, really serious about your operational security and life security. You have to be paranoid as fuck because you don't last long.
This is why crypto, like the outro video after the show today, the cryptography as something that it's something that still works, that anybody can use, that anybody can learn to use, that's free to use, it's freely accessible. It is like the thing that everybody should be learning about, even before coding, even before, like, it is a safety, it's a personal safety thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because
you don't know
who the important people are usually. Like, you don't know, like, necessarily, they're not named and out there saying, oh, this person's, here's the name of the boogeyman is this, and as long as you don't say this, this, and this, you never know what you're going to say. That's like, oh shit, was that a bit too far? I don't know. So by default, cryptographically secure privacy is important for that reason.
Great. Privacy is critical. Anonymity is more important than people think. It really bothers me that a lot of the devs on a lot of these DAOs and projects are not anonymous. Because they're those things are critical. And cryptography is hilarious. Like, the basis of cryptography is entropy. The foundation of cryptography is entropy. That's crazy. Like, how linked to physical, to the physical truths of the universe is cryptography. It's like one degree of separation from something that's like foundationally interesting.
I went to my local game shop and bought, six-sided die recently, just because I was like, I need like an analog way to generate entropy.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with like Diceware, creating a password that is
absolutely
secure but memorizable, that kind of thing? So I've been like trying to take that more seriously lately, because I don't know what systems are compromised anymore, but I'm pretty sure that dice from the game shop aren't. So I can use that as a starting point.
Things are what you believe reality is, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. If the dice itself is software in a simulation, then maybe it is. Who knows? But yeah, it's a weird world. I think it's a fascinating time to be alive. I've kind of accepted the dystopia to the point where it's like, okay, I just need to make sure that I'm safe and just pretend that I live in Neuromancer world, or something, and just maybe make it fun. Maybe just live life like it's a dystopian video game, so that at least I can,
if you want to survive,
not lose my mind.
So this is actually, you're getting back to why I studied improv. It's because of this paranoid thinking. Remember who can make fun of the king and not die.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that same kind of thing.
You have to be selected, though. I think you have to be a long time. You were the kid that was raised with the king, that happened to be the class clown. That's the way you get that gig. Otherwise, I don't think you can have a down in the pub in the village. I don't think the king takes kindly.
But art is still more protected than regular speech.
That's right. Art remains more protected.
Maybe not pure, but it's more protected.
It is.
Even if it's criminal activity, it's still more protective. I don't think
there are certain protected subjects in art that it's odd. Even politically, in the past 20 years, we've seen several cases in the West where certain things can be done and others can't. Right?
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that George W. Bush or Hunter Biden are excellent artists who deserve artistic praise for their creations or art trading. You know what I mean? But they're still given a free pass to move money around as long as it's for buying
some
art.
of Hunter's videos.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying, like, art's used all over the place, for good people, for bad people, for whatever, and it's still given this sort of pass overall because it's art.
If Hunter had a OnlyFans and posted those videos, he would be better. It would be very popular. I mean, like, literally, like, that guy would be rolling in dough.
He's got enough content. He showed up like a gargoyle with cameras everywhere with everything he did. He's got plenty of content. He should just monetize it. Yeah, okay.
Like you said, he's got lots of content.
He should monetize it. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I think he did monetize it. I didn't want to get too far into that, but it's pretty obvious.
Okay.
It was monetized. Just
monetized.
Not through OnlyFans. So
talk about it being a dystopian future. It's weird. Like you said, it is really weird living now, because so many things just not so long ago were like only in science fiction. You know, it was
Yeah.
it was literally, and it was like, oh my God, could you imagine?
Could
And
you imagine?
some of the science fiction was like, if you remember back that movie, the one where was it Robert Redford met Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore in like a hotel bar. He's like, hey, I want to sleep with your wife, but I'll give you $1 million. And it was this like huge debate. Like, oh, would you do it? Would you do it? It was, you know, people were that Puritan back then. Now it's not a question, you know? And it's weird, but it's like, if you look at it, like Dave said, you know, don't be so freaked out because we have a roadmap. We know where it's going. You know, I already bought the leather underwear and the weird, you know, dune buggy for when we do go to, you know, the Mad Max time. I got it cheap. I'm ready. You know, I got the outfit, got the voice teacher. I'm all set.
This is an ad for your OnlyFans. What's going on?
No, we know where it's going, so you can just plan for it.
All right, I gotta bounce. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, we got to make sure we wrap before it's a total of 2 hours anyway. So, hey, thank you so much for joining. I had a great time having you on. You're welcome to come back whenever you. You know, we throw up a month at a time, so you know in advance what the topics are each week. So if you see one, it's World Blockchain Roundtable layer, almost the last on the list of layers when you look at it on Den. But there's usually a post, like there's one up for next month already. If you see a topic you want, come on and chat about it.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Cool. Have a good one. Cheers.
Cool. Yeah, it was good talking, man. Cheers.
Yeah, it was.
Entropy. Yeah.
Well, I did find an example. You guys remember the Aurora spy plane?
No.
Yes,
Do you remember
yes.
Aurora Coin though?
Yeah, I remember
I
it's
do
the one
remember.
that supposedly could hover and possibly used some type of type of explosions to. Is that the same one? Really fast.
Aurora was yeah. It
Different.
did use explosions. It had the ramjet with the one that created the donuts on a rope contrail type, right?
Mhm.
There was only one report ever created about that, and afterwards it was suppressed and denied. But there was a profound conspiracy community that kept it alive for a long time. There's people who still think it exists, or it exists, even though in all likelihood it was probably a censored story meant to keep you from digging too far into the B-2 stealth plane.
Didn't Ramjet sing the song Black Betty?
You're thinking of Ram Jam.
Ram Jam.
Yep.
Yeah, but you still don't know. We don't know if it exists or not, and that was
That's true.
It does. Whoa, Black Betty, blah, blah, but that's
That song is totally real. What are you talking about?
a real song, man.
Yeah,
was
examples of
redone by
censorship
Spider
fans are
Beat
really
later
hard to
on.
find, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Ramjet was the band name?
Ram Jam.
Ram Jam.
Ram Jam. I was like, wait, what? I mean, it's a cool name,
It was
Ramjet. but I didn't
redone.
know.
It was redone in the 2000s by Spider Bait.
So that one was a pretty good one actually. The Spider Bait version was pretty cool.
A little harder.
Now, there is one that I think we're not allowed to say yet, but I think there's another one that's like totally not. You're not allowed to talk about it as a thing, but it's completely.
It's the one where some people are hiding behind this thing because you're not allowed to talk about them. So that's a good place to go operate from.
Right.
You know, because you get accused for talking about the entire demographic instead of just the bad guys. Yeah, that thing. Maybe you're talking about different things.
You guys made it cool it on that.
We should do a whole episode of things you're not allowed to talk about and talk about it by description and not name and see how far it
That
goes.
was,
Right,
we should,
right.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to put that in for.
Speaking of stuff that you're not supposed to be able to do, I got Dali to draw something that in all likelihood would offend a lot of people who blew up Charlie Hebdo.
Man, see
What?
why they aren't paying OpenAI. That I have a theory right now that is going to be the main monetization for ChatGPT and other OpenAI concepts will be censorship. That literally you can come in and pay us to make sure that they can't talk about your thing.
I had that revelation like an hour ago on this show when somebody said something. I was like, "Oh shit, that's the perfect psyop bot. It makes it so efficient, and it's always going to do exactly what you want it to do, and lead people to believe what you want them to believe. If you train it correctly, if you give it the right
generative
training.
AI draws the Prophet Muhammad, is the fatwa issued against it?
Well, I would
wondering
think
that
it should
too.
be the
Yeah.
owners of the open AI systems is
Or the
probably the
person
ones
that
that
told
should
it to
be
do it.
responsible.
Would it be? All you did was write.
Oh, you'd ask it a question maybe, but anyway, we don't want to get too far into that for sure.
One of these
But,
days we'll do a show over. Maybe we do a quarterly show in some layer somewhere called like "What If" or something, and we just talk about stuff like "What if."
That'd be pretty good. I like that
kind of thing.
All right. We better.
Yeah, we got to wrap up.
So,
well, this has been great. Thanks, everybody.
I'm glad we're back to doing the
chat.
events on here. It makes a lot more sense.
Like and share.
Yes.
Yep.
Like and share.
Yes, do that.
Subscribe.
It did work better here too. Just to go meta for a minute, it worked better here than trying to, like John said, it's a big ask to get people to switch platforms to continue the conversation.
And all this, you especially you watch a quote from Assange and you come right into this. It's perfect.
Yeah, and then like Sean, you switch channels with Lisa every week on Tuesday, but you don't switch platforms. So I think that it was just a little bit more of an ask to be like, okay, now use your other account on this other platform to continue.
Also,
so putting it here is good. I think I like it at the end as well.
Because before it's like, her people would watch hers, my people would watch mine. And then the chat wasn't. So it's like, so now all my people are forced to watch on her channel. And all her people are forced to watch on my channel. So,
Dictators.
Yeah.
Bunch of taters. All right, man.
Right.
Hyperion Frequency, thanks for chiming back in after your thing to talk to us too. Thanks, everybody. Bye. I'm done. Let's go.
Take care.
Liberty is not a pill that makes men angels. What it does do is limit the extent to which evil can be expressed in the world.